worked out well.
Timber. Did you just call this dope setup tips part 2?
Yeah.
No one's ever gonna watch this now.
Why?
These are totally dope setup tips, buddy.
No, it's dope setup tips. It's dope doing setup tips. Where's this at?
We're back.
Are we back?
Yeah,
I don't see us.
I see us. Oh.
Dope.
Oh God, I like burned.
There we are. We're back. We're back. So, bring up your point about the bell crank.
Oh, yeah. If your car is just always pushing and no matter what you do, does it make a difference? Make sure you don't have a hairline crack in your bell crank.
Mm-hmm.
Usually on the right side.
Yeah, they'll happen right about there, right where the arm connects in. Like it. When you get these cars handling half decent, like sometimes it's hard to tell because it could still, especially on these really medium to high bite track, because it'll still turn, but it'll be like, well, something's just off. It's just I just can't get this push out of it. It's got a slight push. Usually that's a sign that there's something wrong with the bell crank. Like I've gone whole race nights and then the next day realize, oh shit, that bell crank's busted. Like usually happens when you change tracks. Had that once at Hoogland's. Out there practicing, car felt great, but I'm like, it's got a little push. Then I started looking, realized, oh shit, the bell crank's bent, broke. Changed it. Didn't get time to go out and practice, so I had been practicing with S1s. Went out there. Well, S1s, they get a lot of traction on that track, and you just started traction rolling. So, next round did all right. Put the hard tires on. What are you looking at? Why are you reviewing my car and that is falling apart?
So I see something.
Well, it still beat yours.
It wasn't.
Oh, you kept wrecking.
Look at your, maybe it's not in there. Looks like it's missing.
Oh, the pin? I was having problems with the pins flying out. You got the... No, it's in there.
Is it?
Yeah, it's in there.
Is the,
Yeah.
the set screws in there?
Yeah, it's right in there.
It doesn't look like it's all the way through.
Yeah. Yeah, look. Right there. It's all the way through.
Yeah,
That's the backside.
Okay. It just didn't look like it was all the way through.
Yeah, it's all the way through. I just changed this. One of those things, like when we're setting up these cars, when you think about it, pretty much everything on this car, when you're going in the corner, it's pivoting around the right front. Your right front's always your softest. You just really want the right front to hold on and have your rear kind of kick out. That's when you get on the throttle and all of a sudden, car just kind of seems to come out. That's that rotation they talk about.
Rotation.
So just think of it like this. This is the part that you want to stick. You want this whole back end to just kind of follow it. Get a little bit of grip, but still slide around. But enough grip to get forward momentum to keep you going.
Any questions, go talk to your local fast guy.
Yeah, that's really the best place to go at every track. Find out what they're doing and what kind of tires they're using, what gears are running.
So for sprint car, here I have my answer. I have my answers for sprint car.
Okay. All right, so we'll go into sprint cars. So you've got any more questions? Let us know about this.
Go to your local Russ Liebel or Phil Cooper. Okay, that's all.
Like, these are a lot of things we learned through the guys we hang around with, like Phil, Roger, Barry, Groover, Saladay, Osborne.
Yeah.
Who else? Got a lot of names we can mention.
Yeah.
Lots of names. So if somebody talks to you and they run good at the track, what do you do, Kyle?
You try it.
And you shut up and you listen, right?
Yeah, maybe
Yes.
maybe it don't. Joe,
Yes. Yes. Joe. Yes.
Kurt.
Joe. Kurt.
Dylan.
Dylan McNichol. Like, we were at that WNRC, and Dylan's like, the track got really rutted up. He's like, move your shocks in. Give it more movement on the back. And sure enough, that worked because it was so bumpy. Normally we don't do that because usually then the car just starts pushing. But with that track that day being so bumpy, it was worthwhile. And camber? I mean, what about camber? You want to talk about camber on them? Usually, I usually kind of just set the wheels up so they're leaning towards the outside of the corner.
Yeah.
And I pretty much leave it alone. You know, for the most part, you might make a little adjustment here and there, but
I run more camera than you usually.
on the front,
On the rear.
on the rear,
I usually have mine angled more.
you angle it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go for that positive camber.
Yes.
Now, why do you do that positive camber on the right rear?
I don't know.
Because it loosens up the car. Because why? Because it's not biting on the ground. So it can loosen up a car, but you can get in a lot of trouble with it too, real fast.
Yeah. Well, I also
Because that does make that car loose on exit.
But we have found that I do run a looser car than most.
Yeah.
I just like loose cars.
Listen, I mean, you don't be a hero and try and set up that car super loose
No.
and only run 2 or 3 fast laps and then wreck every
No.
4th lap.
Be comfortable.
Set the car up to be comfortable, because a comfortable car will be a faster car for you in the long run. And as you start driving it more, you're going to just naturally set it up looser and looser as you get more and more used to it.
All right. Are we done being helpful now?
No, we should talk about sprint cars.
What do you? I had no idea.
What? Sprint cars?
Yeah.
What? How to basic set up a sprint car when we get to the track?
Oh.
When we get to the track. This is all we're talking about, is what we do when we get to the track. You know, we'll figure out the gearing. Usually we ask around.
Give it to Russ.
No, with the 360 Sprint. We can't speak to mod at this point.
Give it to Russ.
With the 360 Sprint, when you get to the track and Russ is not there, what is the first... What is the first thing we do besides put the car down? We're going to put the car down, and we're going to see, does that car push, or is it too loose?
First thing I do is get told that my tires aren't going to work.
Shut up about the tires. We'll get into the tires then. Usually, the beginning of the night... Did that hurt?
My arm.
Good. At the beginning of the night, when you go out there to practice, usually you're going to be running it with your wing backward, towards the back. Because it's going to be a little slimy.
Well, usually you start center.
Yeah.
I usually start center.
I usually run a little more at the back to begin with, but then you start moving it forward and forward as you go through the night and loosen it up. So just start either center with your wing
or completely off
or
the
back.
end.
Yes. Then you go out there, do a few laps. Maybe adjust your dual rate a little bit. I know you run high dual rate, but you don't run 100% dual rate on your sprint car usually.
Usually 96.
Okay. But you're still, adjust that. Maybe you might need more steering, because these things you can get away with a lot more steering than what you think. At least that's what I found. Next, I mean, we don't really screw with these shock collars.
Not a lot, no.
Pretty much when we have these shock collars set for the ride height, pretty much stays the same. Those shock collars are last minute hot lap adjustments. If the car's a little too tight, a little too loose, you adjust those, right? For the most part, you'll get your wing angle right, and then where you usually start, where I start, is this left rear always got as much toe in as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Right rear, that's where you start working with it.
Usually start with center.
Yes. Start with center at 0. Is the car too loose? You're going to put in maybe 2 degrees of negative camber, negative toe. So you're going to have it pointing in. So you're going to have both your rear wheels pointing in. And as the car gets tighter and tighter, you're going to keep pulling that out and pulling it out to get more and more. No, that would be negative toe, right? Yeah, you get negative toe, so it's pointing out. So you get the car more crab walking. And usually that's all you do to it. There's really not much you really need to touch on these things. How about it?
Until you go to mod.
Yeah, I mean, it's different there. I mean, we got a baseline setup in it that we got from Preston, and that's pretty much, we don't touch that. You might touch your springs like, all right, it's laying down too much on the right front, so you'll put a stiffer spring there.
Yeah, because like
Or it's digging in too hard on the right rear, so you'll put a stiffer spring in, or you'll put a softer spring in.
like I always have a stiffer right front than everybody else does.
Yeah.
I always did. So.
Yeah. So, but that's it. I mean, these things are easier, I think, to set up than the mud balls.
They're easier to drive.
They're easier to drive and easier to set up than just like putting a car down and getting it on the track.
Biggest thing is keeping the bolts tight in them.
That is, especially on these old ones. The one thing you will do every round with a sprint car is check every bolt. You're going to check every single one of these for the A-arms. You're going to check the servo. You're going to check this front piece. You're going to make sure this is on, your wings aren't falling off. I mean, and then you're going to check these here for the transmission to the shock tower. Those ones always come loose. And always check, like, your balls up here. Make sure that your balls are tight. Make sure your balls are tight. Make sure your front hubs, the axle's not coming out. That needs to be tightened up. Make sure these bolts are tight in there. So, like, if you go take off the tires, clean them, just give them a quick nudge and see if they're tight. Don't go too crazy on the thread locker, because sometimes that comes back to bite you, and then you'll spend 3 hours trying to get a bolt out. You got anything to add? No?
Nope.
What about gearing? Because nobody believes us on gearing half the time when we tell them what we run. And tell us usually we get a lot of "you're wrong with that." Check your balls. That's right, Mike K. We usually put in as much gear as possible.
Big old fan, big old gear.
And we even heard it. We even heard it this weekend from Cameron. Doesn't matter how hot you get that motor. We get these motors hot. Like, the one thing we've heard from those Mod Sprint guys is like, doesn't matter. We even run without fans. Doesn't care how hot you get it. And especially with the Just Stock 13.5, you get one of those motors, 6 weeks later you got 4 of them. They just multiply. So don't be afraid to burn it up. You're not going to.
Hey, it's 8:30.
You want to go?
Where?
I don't know. Home? All right. The audience is riveted. There's 21 of them.
They're not talking, though.
I know. Well, they're listening.
Dumbasses.
So, I don't know. That's pretty much our basics, what we do when we get to the track. I mean, it's taken us a while to get to this point where we can go to a track and, like, within just a few laps in one practice session, you got a car that's kind of all right and drives good. Wasn't always the case, was it?
Still not always the case.
Still not always the case, but it's a lot better than it was last year. It was better than it was the year before.
Uh-huh.
So that's about it. It just takes lap time and a lot of time just working on them and playing with them.
So where race this weekend?
You are just so impatient. Just letting these guys know, especially if they're new, like, don't expect, like, you know, when you first start out that, you know, you're just going to jump in and have it figured out right like that. It's going to take some time. And especially when you're racing with mud boss guys that have been doing it for 10 years, that, you know, like the first time we went out there, we had to race against Kurt. Kurt would just show up at any track, and bam, that car would just go. He can't leave now. He just joined.
Not bad.
Kyle's grumpy.
Not grumpy.
So, do you have anything to say about that?
I'm still reverting back to the fast guy that's there. Go ask him.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a place, but what if there is no fast guy? What if they're all novices? What if you show up at a race of all novices? What do you do, Kyle?
Make junk.
Yes, don't be afraid to keep a notebook to reference things.
Oh, I have a
guys
notebook.
tell you. That's a good idea.
I have a notebook for every track I ran at.
Do you?
I do.
Do you have it with?
In my car, yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I really don't anymore. I keep it all in my head. So if I ever die, you're in trouble. You're going to go, hey, what's that? I don't know anymore.
No, I have the note wrote down.
Oh. What if I didn't tell you the right one?
Like you did on Friday when you just put my wing in a random spot.
Listen, you didn't tell me to put the ring in a certain spot.
I told you to put my car back together.
I didn't know where you wanted the wing.
Apparently I didn't either.
Yeah, well, it worked pretty well where I put it, didn't it?
I left it too. I don't know. I don't know that's where you put it. That's where it ended up. And I flipped twice. So wherever it ended up when I flipped.
So your wing was cocked.
Yeah.
So that made it work pretty good.
It was basically half. What the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, what are you complaining about? My wing's falling apart. Yours already fell apart. Why am I the bad guy because I have one bolt missing? It worked completely fine too Saturday until Bobby Butler junked me.
Freaking Butler.
Butler.
Alright.
Yeah, I mean, that's where we're at. I mean, we don't change shocks or anything for different tracks. We have one setup, and unless there's unusual circumstances, we run that setup everywhere. How about it?
Custom Works, Outlaw, for GFRP something.
But what chassis are those? Yeah, this is a GFRP 2023. That's your Custom Works Rocket 4. You know, our cars are a little older. They're hand-me-downs for 13.5. We don't have the new stuff. Unless you count your Rust car. My midget. But those are other people's cars. I have found that most guys don't mind helping you, but they don't like having to repeat themselves on a weekly basis. Yes, yeah. And also, too, like if you're going up to ask people questions, try not to do it when you see that they're busy or they're talking to somebody.
Also, don't do half of what they say.
Yes.
I hate
if
that.
If someone gives you a setup sheet, tells you, here's the limiters, here's the shock oil, here's the camber, here's the tires, don't do half of it and go, well, this doesn't work. You got to do the whole thing. Most guys do half. They'll be like, well, I don't need to do that. I think this is fine the way it is. Just do the whole thing. And don't expect, too, when you get a new setup from somebody, that right away you're going to get the same results. That takes some work. How about it?
Yeah.
You got to figure out what it takes to get that setup to work for you. So, I mean, you don't just put a setup on a Mud Boss and expect it right off the bat to work. Unless you gave it to that guy. He set it up for you, got it driving, put the right tires on it, and it's ready to go. When you do it, it's not the same. It takes some work. And make sure when you do it, don't think that you built it perfect the first time. You could have screwed up. How about it? Mm-hmm. How many times have we rebuilt each other's cars because it's like, this ain't working right? Well, let me look at it. And you look to see what you might have screwed up. Right? And how many times have you found, like, if you've done shocks, shit, I was supposed to put a 3-hole in there and I put a 1-hole.
Have you ever ran a 17.5 boosted? I've played with one, but I never ran one.
Yeah.
That'd be this coming year.
Yes. What?
17.5?
Mm. Right now that we're going from 360 and playing around with mod, there's really no 17.5 right now until Ultimate starts back up. So 17.5's kind of in a weird spot this year, I would say. Like everybody's just kind of gravitating towards mod, and that's the popular class here. So, but we got plenty of 17.5 motors, don't we?
I don't have any.
I thought you bought some.
I don't know what is in there.
Tupperware cars don't work that way. They have a mind of their own. Yeah, they do. I think he's referring to Traxxas cars. How about it? You can build 2 cars exactly the same, but you don't get the same results from a Slash. Mm-hmm. One will work great, the other one just won't go. We had that one car I had called Weller. That car, how many times did we rebuild it and keep putting the same setup on there and it just wouldn't work? Mm-mm. Same setup you ran, same setup Joe was running, but it didn't work in that car. Mm-mm. But then last year, built this car, put the same setup on it, and what did it do?
It was fast.
It raped everything on the track. You're going to tell me I can't say that.
I'm not going to tell you nothing.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, it worked great on that one. But the other car, that car was just a dog, just wouldn't go. So finally sold it back, made it back at the Slash and sold it. So sometimes, oh, you can buy a brand new car and it just winds up being junk. I know, you're losing interest. All right, let's get some more questions in here. Kyle, where are you racing this weekend? And where can we expect to hear your angry announcing?
I don't understand this angry announcing stuff.
You had guys going the other day. He's so angry and bossy and telling us what to do. Like, oh man, that's funny. I was enjoying that.
Thoughts on the FG transmission that is getting rave reviews? Thoughts on that, Aaron?
The Fast Guy transmission?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, he builds a good transmission. I mean, but
This is okay. I'll say it.
I'll say you can build your own. I don't think you got to go to somebody else.
He doesn't.
I'm not trying to take money from him. He builds a good product, but
he does very good work.
Yes.
But you could get those same results if you want to do it yourself. But
Yeah.
if you don't have time or you don't feel confident, go buy it.
Right. That's it. Mark put one in. It looked good. It worked. Listen, it worked good from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
You build your own transmission the first few times, you're probably, if you've never done it before, you're going to be experimenting and have a hard time.
I don't think
It's going to take 2 or 3
There's a lot
tries.
of videos you could get it done the first time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he was making good motors. He puts out a good product. He puts ceramic bearings in some of them, and, you know, that's fine. I mean, you will ask a lot of the faster guys at your track, well, do you even take the bearing seals out, most of them? Nah. Did you do anything fancy? Did you put ceramic bearings in? They'll go, nah. I mean, we've even seen guys that say, I didn't even take it apart and take the grease out. I just ran it. And how do they run? Fast. It all comes down to setting up the car.
Do you think we'll be running the big track full time next season at Fezziland?
Yes. Yes, that's the only track they'll be running. The small track's gone. That's going to become parking, isn't it? Yeah.
So
I mean, when people are... Listen, with the BL2 motor, I do think there's ways that you got to figure out what gearing works best for your car, for that motor. But for the most part, they all seem to be pretty equal.
So
I don't think it really matters too much about the motor or dyno testing. That's just my thoughts. I mean, I don't know. I have had the same motor in this car for over a year now, and I've never taken it out, and it just keeps running. I mean, Slash has put up with a lot of abuse, and they just keep running. How did my rear end sound on Saturday when I was driving that car around there? Sounded like it was about ready to blow up, didn't it?
I thought he had better going.
Yeah, but so did I. But it kept running. So now you'll know when a bearing goes bad, especially in a hub. That thing just starts handling wacky.
How was that to move?
But, you know, I drove around with a blown out bearing inside the transmission, I don't know, for a couple weeks there for a while. Still won with it. It was fine. So these things put up with a lot of abuse. These sprint cars do too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when people look at this thing, they can't believe sometimes that it still runs.
So, racing this week.
Yeah, where are you going?
I'll be at Fezziland Tuesday. I'll be at Fezziland on Friday. I will be at RJ's on Saturday. And I will be at Fezziland on Sunday.
Are you going to be announcing all 4 days?
Another week of it, yep.
Wow. So if you want to come out and hear Kyle yell at you and pay to do it.
I don't yell at anybody. Mm-hmm. Unless they deserve it.
If you want to find out how to get Kyle to yell at you, come see me. I'll help you out with that. I mean, people would probably pay to get yelled at by you at this point.
It's kind of weird.
Maybe. I mean, I got yelled at by Kyle. Like, you know, almost getting yelled at by like a minor league celebrity.
Right.
You know what? Some YouTube people wouldn't yell at you. But Kyle would.
Not this over here.
What are you doing? Why are you so distracted?
Because, I don't know.
Wes, help me here. Get him on topic.
It's past our time, and I'm
All right,
sleepy.
so Kyle's tired,
I am tired.
so we're gonna sign off.
Where are you racing?
You never asked me.
Well, I figured you would have assumed that I was going to ask you.
I don't assume anything, because when you assume, it makes an ass out of you. I'm going to race at Pheasantland pretty much all week. Tuesday. They can have Kyle yell at you, kinky. Yep. Ryan, can I sign you up for that? $20 a yell. $40 and he'll ban you for the day.
Ban you?
$60, he'll kick you personally out of the track. So, all right, folks. We're logging off. So
Thank the sponsors.
Oh, yeah. Don't forget, KHD Speed Labs, Papa Willie's, J-Body RC, Rip Motorsports, Race Ready Products,
There you go.
and
Todd Epstein and Russ
Todd
Lebo.
Epstein and Russ Lebo. Get me drunk first. That's a really hot topic of my track is running in blinky mode versus running wide open. Let me ask, how much quicker can you get around the track running wide open versus in blinky mode? No boost, no turbo. Can you answer that?
So, if I knew the question, yeah.
He just asked.
I hear it.
Would you rather go blinky or would you rather add boost?
I don't like Boost. Boost is dumb to me. I don't like it.
It works, but you got to be able to handle it.
I like 17.5 boosted to me is weird. I don't know why we're not just all mod.
Well,
17.5 boosted is basically just mod.
Russ Lebo's his car owner. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've seen guys like some tracks we can run boost with big block. That's more my experience with it. And you'll usually see when they start to get the boost starts to kick in, it's about half track. But before then, you're fine. So they got to be able to get off the corner well, be able to get the power down, and then half track, that car will really start to come on. But then they're having to lift to get in the corner. Now, when we run these 13.5s, we're almost running them flat out when they're really running good.
Mm-hmm.
So would you put, in our 13.5 times, by the end of the day, at a day at Ultimate, when the track gets real sticky, they're not comparable really to the boosted cars. Now, early in the day they are.
Yeah.
During the first few rounds when things are still wet and a little slippery. But by the end of the day, the boosted cars just, they run away from us. So I would, honestly, I mean, why wouldn't you just leave it open? Like it's a 17, it would just be a 17.5, a boosted class. You're allowed to run boost if you want to. If you don't, you don't. Right?
Yeah, I don't
Like go with something like a 13.5 or a 10.5 where it already has enough power that like some guys might be fine with running it with no boost and other guys might say, well, I'm going to run boost and just leave it there. I mean, someone's going to win, someone's going to lose. So figure out which way works better. I took out a 10.5 and put a 13.5 in line this past weekend. First time I ran a 5-second. So you went to a 13.5 and you ran faster with a 13.5 versus running with boost. Yeah, that makes sense. Because a boosted car, like, doesn't come on the whole time.
Mm-mm.
And the 13.5's just got gobs of torque. So you're coming off that corner, you're standing on it, and it just goes. While the 13.5, the 10.5, you got to wind it up. I mean, in mods, some guys are just running really big motors versus no boost.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're Phil Cooper, you run a really big motor and you run boost. But some guys will just say, what, run like a 10.5 and no boost. So.
All right.
All right. All right, Kyle's ready.
I am.
Yeah, because you're actually putting power to the ground. Yeah. So. All right, guys. We're going to go. We'll see you later. Thanks for watching. Let us know what you want to talk about next week. We'll be here. And don't forget to watch those Hit Squad guys. They're on, I believe, Wednesdays. or YouTube. Check them out.